Welcome to Architrave Gaming. I am the Archmaster. It is so good of you to drop by. Today we are continuing our series about telling you all about Archers and Avatars, my system. It is built on the bones of 5e. You have your 6 attributes and your d20 and all the good stuff, but I've altered things in various ways that are familiar. It's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. But, fixed. It's different enough to actually, make a real difference and fix something. But I don't think it's as drastic as something like Nimble 5e, which changes a lot more, I think, in certain areas anyway, in the basics of the game. Anyway, I'm rambling. Today, we are talking about damage reduction, hit points, death and stabilization, and injuries. All right, let's go. So in my system, you actually have your AC, and you also have damage reduction, or DR, which comes from your armor. When you are wearing armor, say leather has 2 DR, right? You get hit with 5 damage, you only took 3 damage, right? When an enemy gets a critical against you, it breaks your armor and your armor does 1 less DR, right? And when they get a second crit and you haven't repaired your armor, it's broken, right? Two crits, if you have minus 2 DR, the armor's broken. So yeah, your shield when you raise it, with like an achieve action actually raises your shield. You have to actually spend an action to raise it. It gives you AC and DR, right? Shields are actually kind of cool. I have medium and light and heavy shields, so they give you different levels of DR and AC. All right, hit points. I do hit points just slightly differently than 5e. Yes, you have your regular pool of hit points. You have your temporary hit points, your maximum, all the 5e stuff. But in my system, you can have negative hit points. You can't just drop to 0 and that's it. If you have 5 HP and someone hits you for 10, you have negative 5 HP. When someone goes to give you like a healing word, oh, here's 2 HP. Great, now you have negative 3 HP. Didn't bring you up. You're not healed just because someone gave you 1 point of healing. Right? When you take damage, it's actually going to keep on going, right? And so when someone goes up and they keep stabbing you, you keep getting negative HP. When you get negative HP equal to your maximum, say you have maximum of 20, when you get negative 20 HP, you're dead. That's how you die. No death saves in my system. It's just your negative HP, right? But also, someone doesn't just have to stab you. You're bleeding out. So you lose a certain amount of HP every round. It gets to your turn. There's no death saves. It's just lost HP. Next. So it's kind of scary, but it's cool. The whole idea where you have negative hit points. First of all, it fixes death saving throws because they make no sense at all. You got stabbed in the heart. You fell down, and then all of a sudden you get 3 death saves, and then your wound just closes and you stop bleeding. How did the wound close? What the heck just happened? What? You auto-stabilize? It makes no sense. The concept of death saving throws makes no sense. ANA is about making things make sense. I call it 5e if it made sense, right? That's my tagline for ANA. I just took 5e because I played 5e. I liked 5e, but so many things didn't make sense. So I just fixed it, and that's ANA. ANA, Archers and Avatars, like D&D. So anyway, where are we now? Oh yeah. Stabilization. You are when you reach 0, you're bleeding out, right? And someone else has to come to you to stabilize you. You can spend an action to staunch your own wounds and slow the bleeding out, but that's it. You're just slowing it, and you're like, I'm gonna die. I need help. Your allies have to come help you, right? There was something else I was gonna say. The whole idea of negative hit points and the fact that you don't just auto stabilize, it actually fixes the whack-a-mole problem in 5e. Where you're down, up, down, up, down, up. It's not so easy to get you up. They have to actually spend a significant amount of healing to get you up. Also, 5e disincentivizes healers from healing you unless you're at 0 HP, right? In my system, if you actually can get to negative HP, and getting to negative HP is actually a bad thing, it encourages them to keep you topped off. Like, oh, you need 5 HP? Here it is. Nah, I'll wait till you reach 0 HP and then I'll heal you for 5, because then you can attack again. It's like, that just doesn't make any sense, does it, right? The way 5e is designed, it encourages behavior that is unimmersive and doesn't make sense, right? My system fixes that. You see someone who's injured at all, it's like, oh, hey, let me help you. Because waiting to help them isn't going to help anybody. Waiting to 0 HP does nothing now, right? I fixed it. So yeah. Okay. Being unconscious. I like the idea of being at 0 HP, but still being conscious, right? So when you are at you're 0 HP or -1 or anything like that, right? You are still conscious. You drop to the ground, you fall prone, you drop your items, etc., right? And you can only take one action, right? Not all 4, only one. And you can use the action to staunch your wounds, or you can use it to crawl or stand up, or attack an enemy. Like, you can still take an action, right? You can even use grit to take one extra action, as always. So you can take 2 actions if you're using your grit, your willpower. Like, I'm gonna power through this. I stand up and I go attack the enemy. You can still do that, right? But once you reach you're bleeding out. You're losing a certain amount of HP each round. When you reach, it's probably that mosquito. When you reach negative HP equal to half your maximum, I'm gonna close this. That bloody mosquito got in here. When you reach negative HP equal to half your maximum, then you fall unconscious. When you reach negative HP equal to your maximum HP, that's when you die. Right? So you still have that half. Say you have 20 HP max. If you get hit, you have -1, 2, 3, and you have a certain number of rounds. It's not just 1 HP per round, but you have a certain number of rounds. It's like, I'm bleeding out. I can do a last stand. I can try to staunch my wounds and slow that bleeding. I can do something. But once I reach negative half, that's a lot of blood loss. You fall unconscious. Someone else needs to come stabilize you. Also, if you stop staunching because you fell unconscious, the blood loss increases, and then so it's deadly, it's scary, it's dangerous, it's really cool. I really like the bleeding out thing. All right, I went through the whole death and stabilization, half your wound, blah blah blah. All right, another thing, real quick. I really dislike the whack-a-mole problem in 5e. I may have overfixed it. I may change this rule in when I actually have a full release, but for now, I put multiple band-aids on the problem. When you drop to 0 HP, you get a point of fatigue, which is essentially like exhaustion. It's an injury type thing. I'll get to the injuries in a minute here. So if your ally does want to do the whack-a-mole, and you drop to 0, you get up, you drop to 0 again, you just got a second point of fatigue. And then you get up again, a third point, right? And it just keeps stacking. So the healer is encouraged to just keep you far from 0, because every time you drop to 0, you just get another, essentially, a point of exhaustion. On top of that, I have a third fix, which, again, you probably don't need to do all of these at once, but when you drop to 0 HP, your maximum HP permanently reduces by 1. It's essentially a scar. You went down. You're injured, right? You're 20 HP, your max is 19. You go down again, max is 18. And so at some point, an adventurer's like, I'm old, I'm scarred, I'm bloodied, I can't do this anymore, and they have to retire. This encourages people to stay tip-top shape. No one wants to drop to 0 in my system. It's not fun, right? It makes you act realistically. Who in their right mind is walking around with multiple wounds and like, yeah, I'll wait till I die? It's like, what? You want to heal everything. You want to heal every scratch, right? It makes no sense for the system to incentivize you to just not heal wounds until you're at 0, right? I disincentivize you 3 different ways. Again, I may or may not include all of those in the final release, but for now, those are the 3 ideas I had that I liked. All right, injury. Injury is a cool thing. Injury ties into the targeted attacks. So, when you take a hit that has at least 1 surplus, you may suffer an injury. Your GM determines which attribute or body part is affected, and an injury is applied to that attributes. Most attributes have up to 4 levels of injury, right? Which are cumulative. So, if you're let's say so each body part and each action and each attribute are all linked, right? So your dexterity, attribute is tied to your movement, and it's tied to your legs, right? Yes, there are other ways you can damage someone's dexterity or hurt them somehow, but it was the simplest thing I could do. And again, it's not super mega complex. It's just like, oh, dex, movement, legs. Yeah, that makes sense. So if someone goes after your legs and they get at least 1 surplus and they injure your legs, your dexterity and your legs and your move action, it's all kind of the same thing, takes an injury. What that means is the first level of injury is called exhausted. You have disadvantage on checks that use that attribute. So if you ever need to make that, athletics check to jump over thing, you have disadvantage because someone hit your legs hard, right? They got a surplus, they got 5 over your AC, they hit your legs hard, and now you have disadvantage. If you get a second injury on that same body part, it's called wounded. You cannot add your proficiency bonus to actions that use the attribute. So if someone hits your your legs twice, with two different surplus, and you have two injuries, your legs are wounded now. You want to make that jump over the chasm. You do it at disadvantage, and you don't add your acrobatics proficiency. At third level of injury, it is crippled, disadvantage on, and halved actions that use the attribute. I'll explain that. So you have disadvantage on any actions that use the attribute, not just checks. It's attack rolls, saving throws, all of it. Disadvantage on any action that uses that attribute, and any action that uses the attribute is halved. So what that means, if you have if your legs are damaged, which means your dex is damaged, which means your move action is damaged. If you try to move and you have a walking speed of 30 feet, you only get 15. It's cut in half, right? Because you're crippled, right? And then lastly, fourth level of injury is useless. You cannot take actions of the corresponding type. So if someone attacks your legs, they give you 4 levels of injury on your dexterity score. You cannot use your move action because your move action is tied to your dex score, right? So boom, you cannot move. They have broken your legs so much that they are useless. You cannot take a move action. And yeah, these are removed during full rests. Like if you're in a dungeon or in the wilderness or like sleeping at a tavern or something, these do not go away. You have to actually take full bed rest. The whole thing I mentioned previously, where you take that 24 hours, you wear no weapons or armor, prepare no spells, you're resting. And if you can walk around, if your legs aren't ruined, then yeah, you can walk around, you can shop, you can do light stuff, but absolutely no adventuring. That's when injuries go away. So yeah, with your strength, if someone hits your arms, right? That damages your strength, damages your achieve action, the thing you do with your arms. If they cripple your arms, you have disadvantage on any actions that use your strength, right? Use your arms, use your achieve action, right? Same thing with mind. Someone hits you on the head, you have disadvantage to make intelligence checks, and then you don't add your proficiency, and then it's useless. You just cannot think straight. Someone hits your head so hard. With charisma, it's like the face, the mouth, and all of that. If you have injuries on your face, on your mouth, all of that, it reduces your ability to be charismatic, and that's why you have disadvantage. So face, head, arms, legs, body. Body's the big one. When you get hit in the body, which is most attacks in the game, it affects your constitution, right? The first 3 levels of injury go normal: exhausted, disadvantage on checks that use the attribute, etc. Wounded, crippled, right? But instead of useless, where you can't take actions of the corresponding type, there are no constitution actions, right? There's the move action tied to your dex, achieve action tied to strength, speak action tied to charisma, and think action tied to intelligence. There's nothing for con or willpower. So instead, you get a point of fatigue. For every point of fatigue you have, you get a -1 to all d20 rolls, all actions you take. So you get hit in the body enough, it affects everything you do. You're in pain, you're injured, bruises, broken ribs, etc., right? And again, you get your chest injury, which gives you a point of fatigue when someone gets a surplus against you. It can just be straight damage, it can be knocking you prone, or they can use it as an injury. That's up to the GM. Fatigue can be removed by any rest, right? So it's not as bad, right? But it affects all of your rolls. It's kind of lame. This actually ties into, it's so cool how various parts of the system blend together. This ties into a previous thing, the attribute threshold bonuses. How you can spend your stamina, which is the aspect that ties to Constitution, to give you a +1 to all your rolls, right? Like that round, you get a +1. That can be your stamina. Using stamina can be used to offset points of fatigue. It's like, I have 2 points of fatigue here. I'm going to spend 2 points of stamina every round to ignore that minus, right? So it's your character just like, okay, I'm pushing past it, right? Like they use their bodily stamina to hit hard enough and not to actually perform well enough to avoid that penalty, right? And then after it's done, it's like, oh man, I'm tired again, right? Lastly, inertia. This might be my favorite. I don't know. I really like it. Your willpower is injured when you take a critical hit, right? Because your willpower, there's no body part you can hit for that. It's a crit. It's like, oh no, it's like panic. It's like your willpower is tested. You got crit. It's bad, right? when you would normally gain the useless willpower injury, again, exhausted, wounded, and crippled happen as normal, but instead of useless, you gain a point of inertia. You may take one less action each round for each point of inertia you have, up to 4. So when you get crit, you may take one less action that round. Where it's like, you got hurt, your willpower is hurt, your ability to like push on is damaged because you're like panicking, etc. Right? It's not like super well defined, but it's that type of thing. And so you can only take 3 actions, right? And you can still do the trading and doubling up and all that, but it's only 3. And so if you keep getting crit, you keep losing actions. If you would gain more than 4 points of inertia, you fall unconscious. Because your willpower, that's like your consciousness. It's like, I'm going to stay awake, I'm going to do this thing. If you are hit with, if your willpower is damaged so much that you just give up, right? That's kind of what the willpower is. If you have no willpower, you give up. So when your willpower is damaged so much that you give up, you fall unconscious, right? If you gain more than 10 points of fatigue, by the way, you die. So that's something you don't want to get, but those are removed every night when you rest. So the cool thing, just like with stamina offsetting fatigue, grit, how you can spend grit, your aspect of willpower, you can spend grit to take extra actions, you can offset the inertia you get, right? It's like, oh man, I lost an action, I'll take it anyway, I'll push through, I'll use my grit and my willpower to push through it and take that action anyway, right? You get to feel like a hero. Oh, you get to feel like a hero. It's really cool. I really like the way the system works. It gives you choices, it gives you interesting, sometimes hard choices. It's like, oh, I'm injured, that's a crit, what do I do? It's really cool. And this works for enemies too. Like, you can like go up and crit on the enemy. It's like, cool, he loses his action, yeah. Like, you can do so many cool things. It's super epic. It's really fun. Yeah, that's everything for combat. Thank you for watching. Please feed the algorithm, like and subscribe. YouTube pleasantries go a long way. Thank you to my patron, Jack McCarthy. I'm so tired. Every time I say his name, I'm like, am I getting it right? I don't want to get it wrong. I'm so tired. But yes, thank you all for watching. Thank you for supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. And join the Patreon, and you will one day, Lord willing, if you're high enough tier. Probably shouldn't be that high because I want people to playtest it. You'll get access to the PDF, the document, either in whole or in part, probably depending on your tier, and you'll actually get to play stuff and take this and you can take it right now. Just take what I'm telling you and put it in 5e and improve 5e, right? As homebrew. Not everything I'm telling you. Some things like injuries probably aren't going to work. But anyway, yeah. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. God bless.